Hey everybody, Lars here. Time for the first review video for Unit 2, and I'm going to get right at it because I want this to be a quick one. I am shot. It was a beautiful day today, and I hopped on my new mountain bike and I tooled around for like 2 hours, and I am dead. Then I went to the Touch and Y, steam room, sauna, shower. That's a Norwegian triathlon. And just, I'm shot. I'm all shot to pieces. But the third season of Bloodline on Netflix does not watch itself, so I have to get my stuff done so I can prepare for the evening's activities. I may have to run down to this thing down in I live in Metuchen, New Jersey. And on Saturdays in June, they have a thing called Junebug where there's like a street fair. So I may run down there later on tonight. Again, I digress. I should not. We have code to look at. So let's look at the first part of the slides on strings and lists and get that stuff out of the way. And then the second one we will get to iteration, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. All right, I prepared a bunch of code for us. So basically what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to run it. Look at that. And put it next to each other, and then we're just going to go down the line and talk about it. All right. Strings. Strings are a data type where basically you're dealing with words, alphanumeric characters that are all in a row. But as we'll find out in a minute, we can index them and grab different parts of them. So the first thing I do here is I define a string. I call it my string, and I just make it equal to the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain, which is Dr. Dolittle, Pygmalion, whatever, float your boat. Okay? And that's a fairly long string, so it'll give us a chance to play around with it and do stuff. How long is it? You can see the first thing I do here is I print the len. So I use the len function on my string, and I find out that this particular string has 43 characters in it. Now, remember, spaces count. So those blank spaces are characters. And when I do a len, that means I have 43 characters in the whole. But I start counting at 0. So if I want to reference them individually, I'm going to reference them from 0 to 42. Okay? So we're going to see that in the next thing we do, where here I say I'm accessing single characters with their indexes. So now if I print my string of 5, I come up here to the string. T is 0, 1, 2. The blank is 3, 4, 5. So 5 should be an A. And if I come over here, that's exactly what gets printed. A. Okay? Now, the second thing, I look at my string and I do what's called slicing. I go to get a little substring or a little subpart of that string, okay? Now, you're going to hear me say it a million times, and I think this is the first time we're running into it. When you have ranges in Python, the first part of the range is what you want. It's inclusive. The second part is exclusive. It's the first thing that you do not want. Okay? We're going to talk about it later when we have some fun with strings. So right now, I'm going to start with 5. So because we did that work up there, I know I start with A. So I'll start with that A right there. And I will go to 14. So it'll say Ain in Spa. That's right there. If we looked, we'd see that that A is the 14th index. And 15 is the first thing we don't want. Remember, and this is true in a lot of things we're going to be doing down the line. So remember, in Python, when you have ranges, the first part is inclusive. It's the first thing you want. The second thing is exclusive. It's the first thing you don't want. Okay? All right. So now we're going to look at something called out of bounds error. You see my string of 42, when I print it right here, I get N. Because the very last thing is an N. And I know there's 43 characters, 0 through 42. But what if I said 43 and reran it? Let's find out. Boom. You can see it blows up. And the error we get says string index out of range. I have a 43 character string, and I just asked for the 44th character. Okay? Python tells me, go pound salt, get out of here. That's not happening. Now, if anybody has any experience with the programming language C, you'd realize C would let you do that. C would just go and grab the next thing sitting there in memory, whether it was part of your string or not. Python doesn't let you do that. Python has a little, little safety features and little things that don't let the programmer mess themselves up. So you can go out of bounds on a string. If you try to reference something that's longer than the string, you're going to run into trouble. Okay? And again, we're going to talk about that later. Let me rerun. So I have a nice clean copy. Let's see. All right. Now we're back in business. You can use math in your index. So if I do my string 4 plus 5, that's my string of 9. That ends up being the n here. Okay. 12 minus 3, same thing. So, oh no, actually it's the I, because you can see 2 i's in a row here. See? And that's the same thing, my string of 9. So you can use math. Those indexes can also be variable names. Okay? So that, you know, sometimes that comes in handy. I know I program video games. Sometimes you create a long string of characters with different X's and O's and things like that. And you can go grab a different section of that string to use in your game. So sometimes that actually comes in handy. Okay? All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is string methods. Methods, and this is a little bit of just in time. You're going to learn in Unit 5 about objects and things like that. Methods are basically little functions or little mini programs we can run on our strings. And you'll learn more about that later. But for right now, just know that you can take your variable name of your string and then put dot and then a function name or a method, and it'll run that particular process. So in this case, I show you two. I show you one called upper, which is uppercase. It takes the string and puts it in uppercase. You can see here the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. But what you need to realize about it is that it's just going to do it once. It's not a permanent change, because right under here I print my string again and you can see it goes back to normal. All right. Same thing here. I do print my string and now I use the replace method and I replace Spain with France. So if you look here, you can see the rain in France falls mainly on the plain. Again, I go back and print my string, and I'm back to Spain. The strings don't change. They're what's called immutable. So this is only something that the function does, and this still stays permanent. Now, if I want to change the string, what I do is I grab a new variable name, and then I do the replace. And then when I print new string, the Germany stays, you see? Because I swapped out Spain with Germany, and then I printed that out, and the Germany stays there. Okay. One last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you count, which is a method. If I come up here and I count the ends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 of them. You can see right there it says 6. Okay. That was just me making a boo-boo. So that 43's got nothing to do with the price of tea in China. Hold on. Okay. See? There we go. All right. So that's some simple stuff with strings. We're going to jump off and talk about lists now for a little bit, but then we're going to come back to strings because I want to show you some weird / cool stuff with Python and the way Python gets a little kooky with a couple of different things, but we're going to play around with it, all right? So you don't have to worry about dealing with this code because I'm going to put it on Sakai for you and you're not going to have any worries, all right? So I'm going to come up here and use our little trick and zot this out. And then I am going to, oh, look at that. It's all done. Come down here and zot that out. So now I have my list portion. So now when I run it, yay, I get my lists. All right. So now we can start talking about lists. Lists, and I think in the slides or somewhere, I call them strings on steroids, because you can do so much more with them. You're going to see, as data scientists, as people who are Python heads, you're going to use lists all the time. Lists are different from strings in 2 different ways, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's do this first. First, I define a list. I say my list equals, and then you can see I open with brackets, and then separated by commas, I put in the items I want in my list. And in this, I kind of just mimic a string. I say capital L and I put my name character by character. So then when I print it, you can see here it has all of the conventions of the list. It's bracketed and it shows you each individual item. It doesn't really print it out like a word, like a string would. So I get L and then my A and my R and my S, okay? And then, just like a string, I can also index it. See? So I ask for the 2, and it gives me the R, because indeed, I still start counting with 0. 0, 1, 2, 2 is the R, so it prints it out, okay? Here's where lists are different than strings, and it makes them much more powerful. Strings are not mutable. You can't change them. Lists are changeable. As you can see here, I go to my list of 2 where that R was, and I change it to a 7. And then I print it again, and as you can see here, LA7S. But do you notice something else about that? 7's an integer, okay? With strings, everything's got to be alphanumeric. Everything's got to be a character. With lists, it's not the case. You can mix and match data types. It makes them crazy powerful later on down the line, where you can put all kinds of different data types, including data types that you define. And you're going to learn how to do that with classes in Unit 5. But you can put all kinds of different things in your list. Here I create a second list, and I put an integer, a float, a string, another integer, and then another list. So you could make lists of lists. As a matter of fact, that's how we do rows and columns. They're just lists of lists. So then when I print list 2, here we go. Look, 2, 23, Lars, and then that list is within the list. So it's actually a nested list, okay? Then the one last thing I'm going to do with lists is I'm going to show you a method with lists. It's very, very helpful. We use it all the time. It's called append. It just takes something and puts it at the end of the list. So here I took my list 2, the one I just created up here, and I just added a string to the end of it. And you can see when I print it, it's right here. You can see, let me make it a little longer. There we go. So now this list, boom, it's got all those things, got the list here and the string at the end. You can see the string is delimited by the single quotations, just like this string is right here. Okay? So that's kind of what you have to remember about list and string. Strings are only alphanumerics. They're only words, but technically they are sequences, so you can go inside them with indexes, and you can get subparts of them and index them like that. Lists are also like that, but they're super powerful because you can change them on the fly. They're mutable. I can go to one part of the list and swap that item out with something else. And I can mix and match data types. I can now keep a collection of things that don't have to be one data type. And if you came up programming in the 80s and the 90s, that's fantastic, because back in the day you had to have, it was difficult. It was doable, but it was a pain in order to maintain a list with different kinds of data types. So I mean, this is really fantastic, and you're going to see when down the line it's going to come in handy. You got to do it all the time. You're going to create a condition, and you're going to look through a ton of data for certain things, and if that certain thing is true, you're going to throw it in a list. Boop, 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 boop. And then when you're done, you're going to have a list of the things you want. And then you can take that list and look at it and do different things and turn that list into another list. Well, lists, I always say this, lists are like empty bookshelves. It's like having bookshelves all over the place. You can just say, oh, I need an empty bookshelf, and I'm going to put I'm going to put these books in it. They are incredibly handy. It is to your benefit to run to the Python, don't walk to the Python documentation and learn about lists and the different things you can do with lists, because they're really helpful. You're going to be using them from now until the day you stop programming. Hopefully that's never. All right, so that's pretty much what we do with lists. The thing to remember, and the thing, wink, wink, that might end up on a quiz, is that lists are different from strings in 2 different ways. 1, they are mutable. You can change them on the fly. 2, you can mix and match data types. It's not just alphanumerics. It's all different data types, all different things can be kept in a list. Okay? Okay? Okay. Now let me see what I need to do here. Whip, whip. There we go. Now we are going to have a little bit of fun. Are we? Hold on, let me make sure when I run this I get nothing. Yay, nothing. Okay. Good, 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 good. Let's have some fun by playing around with strings. All right. str4. You see that I have made that equal to the phrase hello world. I know from experience that is 11 characters. 5-letter word, a space, and a 5-letter word. Okay? So, let's say I want to print str4, the D at the end. What do I need to do? I've got 0 through 10. So I'm going to print 10, and that should give me the D. Whew, and it does. Thank goodness I'm not crazy. Now, if I want to print the whole thing out, I can go 0 through 11. Okay? Because 11 now is the first thing I don't want. So let me try that. Whew, that works too. Okay, things are normal. This is where you run into trouble. If I try to print 11 there, that doesn't exist because I'm 0 through 10. 11 is the first thing. I will get an out of bounds error. There we go. String index out of range. So I get an out of bounds error when I ask for that. Now, on the other side of the coin, that works, but what if I ask for 12? That should blow up too, right? Because that's out of range. Because 12 isn't the first thing I don't want. 11 is. So I think this is going to look for 11, and it's going to blow up, right? 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 No, it doesn't blow up. Okay? Watch this. Not only does it not blow up, that second one could be arbitrarily large. And it still works. This is a bugaboo in Python. I think I know what it's about as far as making ranges work. But basically, what I'm telling it here is Python sees this is beyond the range of the string. Just print the whole string. And it defaults to just printing the whole thing. So it's a weird little, I don't want to call it error, mistake. It might come in handy if I don't know the length of different strings and I just want to use one print line for a lot of different things. And then I just say, all right, let's try to do something crazy and see if we can get it to blow up. I don't know, that's tough. 800 doesn't blow up. What about 8,000? Yeah, okay, good luck with that. So basically that's, I don't know that I would call it a bug or a feature. I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. So watch that. On the end, when it comes to the end of a range, printing a string, can't go wrong. And this is why I came to it. I had a student, I've been doing this course for a couple of years now, and I had a student who came up to me and said, I want to print hello world, but I want to do it using reverse indexing. So I said, okay, as a little reminder, we do -1, and what's that going to print? It's going to print the D, because -1, if you want to regard a string backwards, -1 is there. So -2 is the L. Let's go confirm that. All right, we're not crazy. Okay, so now, what if I want to slice as far as this is concerned? Let's go -4 to -1. So I'm going to go -4, which is O, and -1 is the first thing I don't want, so I should get ORL. So when I run this, I get ORL. This is where the student ran into a hassle. The student tried to do this, -1, -4, thinking this. The student then was thinking he would get DLR, with -1 being that way, and then L, and then R, and -4 being the first thing he didn't want. Okay? What you find out very soon is that Python doesn't like that. Python, when you regard strings as far as slicing is concerned, Python wants to go from left to right. Okay? So don't give it this. But what's the clever thing to do here? The clever thing to do here is say, well, do it backwards. Python, I could put in that third thing and tell you to go backwards instead of going forwards. So now when we run this, look at that. We get DLR. So we're going to get that D, we're going to get that L, and we're going to get that R. So now it works, okay? As long as you tell it to go backwards. But we still had an issue, and the issue was this. The student wanted to use reverse indexing to print it forward. Just as a trick, I told them, why would anybody ever do that? And they couldn't really answer. But I said, okay, well, what do we want to do? We do -11, okay? And that's going to give us the H, right? Yes. So we know that's the reverse index for the beginning of the string. Then we go to -1, and when we print that, we get hello world, because we don't get that D in there, okay? Because we go to -1, so -1, the D is the first thing we don't want. So what did the student do? Something very logical. Figuring, logically, the scheme that we're doing, you would put a 0 there. And then it would just say, hello world, because 0 is the first thing I don't want. Run it, and everything should be fine. Doesn't work. And it doesn't work because Python doesn't like anything that looks like you're going from right to left. Anything like that. Because technically 0 is the H. Okay? So it's almost like I'm telling it, H is the first thing I don't want, but H is the first thing I want, and it's very confused and it doesn't like it. So, knowing what we know before, we thought, well, maybe if that doesn't work either. Not in this context. So the student was kind of confused and skunked and said, you know, what do I have to do? So I provided a little trick. So now you do that, and you get the hello world. All right, but then I'm not going to use a range anymore. I am going to use just a single character, and I'm going to add that single character to the end of that slice. In the context of strings, the plus sign is what's called concatenation. Okay, that is a highfalutin computer science word for taking two strings and slamming them together. Okay, it's just addition with strings. That's all it means. Google it, concatenation. So I'm going to take that original string there, hello world, and I'm going to add the final part to it by tacking it on the end. So now when I do it, it says hello world, and technically I have done it with reverse indexing. Okay? The whole point of this exercise and the whole point of me going through this with you is to try and impress upon you that you should tinker. Tinker around with these things. Try to do things backwards. Try to do things forwards. Try to, you know, do different things with reverse indexing and regular indexing and mixing and matching and playing around, because there's different things to discover and there's different things to figure out and play around with and get those things done. All right? All right. You know what we're going to get today? We're going to get a really decent finale. There's a whole bunch of stuff. All right. Is that good? Let me save that and let me run that. Look at that. I got all my string stuff, my slicing, my indexes added up in the middle of the thing. Then I do some replaces and I change some things. Then I have my lists. Look at my count. Tells me how many ends are there. But now I do lists, and lists, look at that. Lists are mutable on the fly. So I can make that R a 7. And I could even have a list of lists because I have different data types, and I can add to them at the end. And that hello world is from the very last part when we played around with strings and we did things like that. Okay? All right. I'm already heading for a half hour, and I want to try to keep these I want to try to keep these bite-sized so you don't get bored. All right? So I'm not going to clobber you with a lot of announcements because I'm going to do review video 2 tomorrow, and then I'll hit you with some announcements. All I'm going to let you know is you got Unit 1 under your belt now, so you should be feeling pretty good. I think everyone did very well. I haven't looked at the assignments yet, but I've looked at some of the quizzes, and the quizzes seem to be decent. Okay? So you're all doing well. Everything is cool. Keep doing what you're doing, all right? You have the slides. You have the Zell readings. Steep in that. I'm going to get you this video tonight. Hopefully I'm going to get you video 2 tomorrow or Monday. Then we're going to play around with the Project Euler site. You probably, if you've read the slides, you know what I'm talking about as far as that's concerned. So we're going to do some stuff about that. One more item that I'm going to mention right now very quickly is that tonight I'm going to post the instructions for the midterm project. So as of tonight, which is Saturday, June 10th, you are going to consider yourself given the midterm so that you have a month to work on it, because I don't think that guy is due until July 11th. Okay? And if you have any questions about that, of course, you can ask me, and I will do an announcement on the Sakai site so you'll know about it, and everything will be cool. Okay? Take this code. It's on Sakai. Play with it. Fool around with strings, fool around with lists, and know them, because they're two very important data types that at the end of the day, you're going to see them as data structures, and you're going to use them from now till the end of your career, so it behooves you to play around with them. And like I always say, computer programming is a pyramid. You're building your pyramid right now, and these things that you're building in your foundation and your base, you're always going to use them. So it's not going to be wasted time. You're not going to play around with strings and lists and then never use them again. You're going to use them every day. You're going to use them as you program. So when you get to learn them and you get to, get some facility with them, it's just going to make your life easy. All right? All right, then I'm getting out of here. You be good. And I'll be in touch in the next couple of days because I'm going to do the second review video. And that guy is really going to open up the doors for us because we're going to discuss looping and we're going to discuss iteration. And after that, my God, then your toolbox is starting to get some things in it that we can really use to do some data science and some programming. Okay? All right. I digress. I'm going to get out of here. You be good. Talk to you later. Bye.